First Reformed, written and directed by Paul Schrader. This is one of my all-time favorite films, and I also think it's one of A24's most underrated films. It just started streaming as of last week on Netflix, so if you have not seen it, this is your sign to check it out. And if you have seen it and it's been a while, it's time for a rewatch. So in this video, I hope to convince you to check it out by telling you about what makes the film so special, which is profound, meaningful, philosophical storytelling. It's just well written. Paul Schrader is the same screenwriter of Taxi Driver. Of course, that film's a classic. And Paul Schrader taps into very similar things that he taps into in Taxi Driver. This film, as Paul Schrader said himself, is almost like a spiritual successor to that film. Both are structured very similar. Both follow an isolated man who is going through some sort of an existential crisis. And throughout the film, he's journaling, and his journal entries are the narration of the film, and both lead to an ending that is very ambiguous. And I love this film. I personally prefer it over Taxi Driver. So this film follows a pastor who is already in a dark place. He is already not doing too good, and he goes to counsel a couple. Amanda Seyfried's character comes to him asking him to talk to her husband, who's going through a bit of a depressive episode, not just because of mental health issues, but because of the world. The world is getting him down. And when he goes to talk to this man's questions kind of spark doubt in his mind, or kind of expand the doubt that already lives in his mind. And not so much about God, not so much about hating God, or not so much that God isn't real, but more so about this world. And that's what this film does. This film just takes its time, relentlessly explores and wrestles with these questions. Why does God allow suffering? Is it immoral to bring a child into this world? And in this world filled with corruption, hurting the planet, wars, etc., how do you cope with it? How do you hope? How do you choose hope in a world that is forcing you to despair? And that's what this film is about. And what I love is that this film doesn't necessarily give you answers. And I think it's wise to not do that, because then it will feel a little bit too preachy, or perhaps too simplifying an extremely complicated, deep questions that are universal and timeless. But what this film does do is it provides a very specific perspective, a dark perspective. This film is a cautionary tale about a pastor who was already not the best in terms of mental health and spiritual health, and he's at a crossroads. This is an important time of his life when he has to choose to hope or despair. And I personally agree with that philosophy, that it's a choice. You need to choose which path you're going to go down. And he himself says this at the start of the film to this couple, and he chooses despair. And I love the fact that he himself establishes that, because often that's what happens in real life. You give good advice, you have good counsel, but you yourself cannot follow it. And that's what this film's about. And I think the film illustrates this in such a incredible way from a storytelling perspective, because two things are established at the very start of the film. Like I said, he has a bad mental health and spiritual health, but also he has physical ailments. He has like some sort of urine bladder infection, and that infection, that bodily discomfort, mirrors his mental state the entire film. He intentionally is neglecting his physical health, and towards the end of the film, he's even making it worse intentionally. He's self-destructing, which happens when you choose despair. When you allow yourself to despair, you self-destruct, and that can happen in various ways, and this film shows specific ways the way this character self-destructs. And I love that the film reminds you that this is a choice, because there's characters who are a little bit annoying, but there's a character who is trying to help him, who's asking about his health constantly, and even other people in the church are asking. But because he's already so disillusioned with the church and disillusioned with this institution, he's just kind of like, yeah, I don't care. Like he's spiraling. He's in an echo chamber of thoughts, and he just is ignoring all the signs of positivity. And there's another character, Amanda Seyfried's character, who she does represent like purity. She's a young mother. She's beautiful, and her personality is very hyper feminine and just good, like I said, pure. And he enjoys his time with her, and she even shows him to enjoy the simple pleasures of life. There's a scene where they go bike riding, and you hear his inner thoughts from his journaling, and he says like, man, it's crazy how just simple exercise and being out can help you and lift your spirits. But he continues down this spiraling, depressive despair path, and it is what it is. Those are his choices. And I just love how, like I said, you see it through, as the film progresses, his physical health getting worse while his mental and spiritual health gets worse. And when he reaches the ending, it has a very similar ending to Taxi Driver, where it's very ambiguous and very cinematic. And personally, I love this ending. I love how ambiguous it is. I love how cinematic it is, how maybe surreal it is, maybe dreamlike it is. I'm not going to give specifics, but like, if you've seen Taxi Driver, you kind of probably already know what I mean. Yeah, I just absolutely love this movie. When I saw this film, I was not as extreme as him, but I was going through a similar form of existential crisis, I guess. I was drinking a lot, I was journaling a lot, and I was going through all of these isolating thoughts. And for me personally, when I saw this film, it comforted me greatly. And just to watch this extreme version go happen, yeah, I would love to know people's thoughts about this film if you've seen it. And if you haven't, you need to check it out. I think it'll spark a lot of thoughts in you and make you think about the really deep, important questions, even if you aren't a Christian. But I do think this film is more specifically directed towards Christian nihilism. So yeah, check it out. Let me know your thoughts, and thanks for watching.